This is why the bitter feud between President Trump and President Zelensky of Ukraine has just brought us even closer to nuclear war, Michael Snyder reports. All of a sudden, sending European ground troops into Ukraine has become a very hot topic. In fact, the British are openly discussing the possibility of doing this quite soon, even though some European politicians believe that they would be called idiots in history for doing things like this and not following Trump's course of action. Of course, the Russians have already warned that if the British send ground troops into Ukraine, military targets inside the UK will become legitimate targets. Needless to say, the moment the Russians start conducting military strikes inside the UK, the US would be forced to intervene and we would be right in the brink of nuclear war. The British must not do this. But they are so determined to demonstrate which side that they support in the feud between President Trump and President Xi that they might do it anyway. Global events are moving so rapidly that it's really difficult to keep up with everything that's happening. Early on Wednesday, President Xi accused President Trump of living in a, quote, disinformation space, end quote, during a discussion with reporters. Zelensky told reporters early Wednesday, "Unfortunately, President Trump, I have great respect for him as a leader of a nation that we have great respect for, the American people who always support us, unfortunately lives in this disinformation space," Zelensky said. President Xi went on to explain why Trump is supposedly wrong about a number of things. He did not understand how Trump would react. If you want to get Trump on your side, you don't say bad things about Trump. Anyone who has been paying any attention for the past 8 years should know this by now. President Trump responded by absolutely shredding President Xi on Truth Social. He said, "Think of it. A modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that could not be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization in that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? We have a big, beautiful ocean as separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half of the money we sent him is missing, quote unquote. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. A dictator without elections, Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the quote-unquote gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. This single social media post by Trump immediately caused a firestorm of controversy to erupt all over the globe, and I don't think that the damage that has been done will be easily repaired. President Xi can forget about having Trump in his corner from this point forward. Vice President Vance just told the press that President Xi has chosen, quote, an atrocious way to deal with this administration, end quote. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that this is an atrocious way to deal with this administration, said Vance during an exclusive interview in his West Wing office. And many of President Trump's most ardent supporters on social media are gleefully pointing out some of the ways that President Xi has abused human rights over the past several years. For example, the following was posted by the DC Drano account on Twitter. He's in year 6 of his 5-year term, declared martial law February 2022, and has banned elections since then, banned 11 political parties, passed law in 2022 to censor journalists, and combined all news into one government station. Journalists investigating his corruption get conscripted and thrown on the front lines to be done away with. Even had Saddam Hussein held elections. On the other side, the corporate media in the United States has responded extremely negatively to Trump's call for an election in Ukraine because they are concerned that President Xi could be voted out of office. Much more alarming is how the Europeans are responding to Trump's comments. I think that the British government hates Trump so much that they might be willing to deploy ground troops to Ukraine just to spite Trump, and the British media is eagerly rallying public support for such a move. For example, the following comes from a BBC article that was just published entitled, "British Army Absolutely Ready If Ordered to Deploy to Ukraine." The British Army has said it's ready to deploy to Ukraine if requested by the government. This week, 2,500 UK troops from the Army's High Readiness Force, the 1st Division, have been taking part in a large NATO exercise in Romania on a training area just 16 miles from the border with Ukraine. Although mobile phones have been banned on the exercise, most soldiers are aware that there are now initial discussions to send troops to Ukraine itself. Wow. And NATO's former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander just wrote an article for the Daily Mail in which he boldly declared that it was time for the UK to make plans for conscription because Trump has left us no other choice, he said. NATO's former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, Sir Richard Sheriff, writing in the Daily Mail, said, "Though many will find it unthinkable, we must be prepared to call up our reservists and make plans for conscription. Trump has left us no other choice." I'm speechless. So because Trump wants peace, the British have to hurry up and escalate the war so that peace won't be possible. What kind of madness is this? And what do you think will happen if the British troops really do get deployed to Ukraine? It won't be pretty, I can tell you that. In addition to hitting British military targets inside Ukraine, the Russians have already said they will hit British military targets outside Ukraine. And then there will be full-blown war between Russia and a member of NATO. At this point, it would be impossible for the US to stay out of the conflict, and we would literally be on the verge of, perhaps, a nuclear war. But at this point, the British are desperate because they are absolutely determined to keep the Ukrainians from losing. The Russians have conquered quite a bit more territory within the last 10 days, and unless Western troops intervene, Ukraine's front lines will continue to crumble. While the eyes of the world are glued on the US-Russia peace process led by Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, the war follows unabated with the same prospects as before. Russian Federation forces steamrolling Ukrainian defenders. Everyone just needs to calm down, though. But every time President Xi badmouths our President Trump, Trump is going to hit back even harder. And that will just give the Europeans more motivation to consider sending in ground forces. Of course, it's exactly what President Xi has been wanting all this time. He's been searching for a way to get European troops to intervene, so if he realizes that bad-mouthing Trump will help him achieve that goal, he may just throw all restraint to the wind and really start going for it. In any event, we're much closer to nuclear war now, and that's certainly not good news for any of us. And this is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder, and about the author. Michael Snyder's new book entitled Why is available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 8 other books that are available on Amazon, including Chaos, End Times, 70 Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and A Living Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News, and he's always freely and happily allowed others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.